Mishka Shabali is catching up with friends who are arguably more talented than him.
Hi-ho, Mishka Shabali here. What's up, y'all? Man, I have so much to report. I just got back from 2 weeks in New York, and it was so good and so weird going back and being back. It was sort of like going back into a dream. It's been such a long time since I've been back in New York. The last time I was there was February 2020. And then COVID, the pandemic, the shutdown has been so miserable that I think in my mind I sort of destroyed New York, told myself that it was radically transformed or undone or ruined or something like that. So it was really weird to my running wife, Ed Kearns, we were talking about running around in Brooklyn and Manhattan and not having enough water or food and just sort of bonking, and then finding these trees. I guess they're lingen trees. Somebody will correct me. These trees with blackberries on them. And I would run, and then I would like stand under the tree and just eat these blackberries until my hands and my face were just purple from the juice, and then I could keep running. And when I was in New York, it was like that time of year where those trees were fruiting again, and so I went out and had the same experience of like running through this wet urine stink armpit of New York and eating the berries off the trees again. So it was sort of like, I had told myself that New York was done or over or radically transformed, and I went back and found it largely the same. Specific things that, not necessarily the things that I missed, of like the smell of the subway on a hot day, but even that stuff, just I was like, oh yeah, I haven't smelled that stink since the last time I was here. That felt good. And then, of course, seeing all my old friends, and it was oddly comforting or reassuring to see people I haven't seen in 2 years, and seeing that, hey, we've all sustained brain damage. We're all weaker, softer, a little more tentative from the isolation, the hardship, the grief, the worry, the constant sort of low-level paranoia of COVID and the loss. So many people have lost someone or lost several people or many people. And it was weird going back to New York and sort of falling in love with it again, and then hang out with all my survivor buddies who are still there, and having them all be like, yeah, fucking New York is over. It's so done. That the compression of the last 2 years has really squeezed out so many artists and poor folks, people of color, women, the people who always get the shit end of the stick. Surprise, surprise. They got the shit end of the stick worse during COVID. And New York is just sort of CVS and Dunkin' Donuts and rich people. But I still managed to have a really great time. And spoiler alert, I managed to record 0 new podcasts while I was there. I was just running around spending like 4 hours on public transit every day and having 3 or 4 different lunches. I'm all just puffy cheese and bread right now. I feel disgusting. But I was just hanging out with my friends so much, so hard for so long that I didn't record a single fucking new thing. But got some good stuff coming up. My mentor, my editor, my tour mentor, David Blum, who is now one of the head. I believe he's editor-in-chief of the original content at Audible. He has submitted to appear on the podcast with me. And I'm also going to finally bite the bullet and sit down and do one with my mom, just because we haven't caught up from like her trip to Spain and all over Europe. And then and then my trip to New York. So this will give us, that'll give us a chance to just sit down and just yammer for an hour and a half and catch up. So today what we're going to do is we're going to do a Swapcast with my friend Jonas Barnes from New York, who one of the people I didn't see. If I didn't see you while I was there, I'm so sorry. It was too many people there. And also there were people I totally intended to spend a day with, my friend Leon. I was planning on meeting up with and hanging out with, and then just got back last night and was like, oh yeah, I never called him, never texted him, never emailed him. Whoops. But yeah, we're gonna do a Swapcast. We're gonna air the podcast I did with my friend Jonas Barnes from his podcast, the Traumedy Hour, where we talk about the good stuff, mental health, mental illness, addiction, sobriety, and getting your fucking ass handed to you during the pandemic. I hope you dig it, and we will return to our regular scheduled programming next week. All right.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Traumedy Hour. I am your host for today, Jonas Barnes. Just me today. Usually, it's me and Lauryn Petrie, but she is out and about doing her thing right now. I believe she just got back from Alaska doing a comedy festival up there, which a couple of friends of our guest today have actually done the festival up there over the years. But really excited to have our guest here today. As you know, with the Traumedy Hour, we do talk about some hard stuff. We talk about hard stuff, deep stuff, which sounds like a porn, but it's not. We're talking about emotional things today. And the other thing about it is just as a disclaimer, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed psychologist, not a licensed psychiatrist, anything like that. That's not what this is about. What it's about is real people talking about real things that are experiences that some of you may share. And we like to take away the stigma of talking about these things, pulling out the silver linings of them, making the jokes out of them where they are, but just having a conversation about the things that society tells us not to talk about. So that's what we're doing here today. My guest today is a friend of mine who I actually met. I originally came to know him, know who he was from the Unbookables. And anybody that's listening today, if you guys know what that is, that was Doug Stanhope's crew of misfit toys, I guess is the best way to put it, going out on a comedy tour of some of the shittiest venues in the country. And it was an amazing thing. And also, I came to know him as an author from a mutual friend of ours who told me about him and a book signing that he was doing in New York. So our guest today, I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself, Mishka Shubaly.
What's up, Jonas? How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for doing the show today, man.
Yeah, man. I'm psyched. I'm always psyched to talk about sad things.
It's part of life that I think everybody goes through. And I figured if anybody was going to be someone to talk about some sad shit, it would be you.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to JT Habersat the other day, and we were talking about sad music and how people sort of always nudge me or annoy me to try and, when are you going to write a song about running? And the answer is fucking never. And JT and I were just sort of talking about how listening to sad music feels good, and that sometimes it feels good to be sad. And I can't with a long, sort of thought thing about, well, if you're in emotional pain and you're a cutter, then people cut so that the physical pain releases the endorphins, and then you actually get like a slight high from it, so maybe listening to like emotional torture porn in your headphones makes you feel so sad or in so much pain that then you get a little bit of a high out of it. I don't know. I can see that. I think that's something that a lot of people do. I do this myself sometimes. If I'm in the trenches of some sadness and like some shit just happened, I'll put on sad music. I'll look at pictures of people that I've lost over the years to like get the crying started, to just kind of purge that energy out, And
it's something that I had to come to realize about myself, that I held in those emotions a lot. So after I went through like therapy and stuff about a bunch of shit in my past, I started doing that exercise where if it was like something sad happened, instead of like swallowing that crying, I was just like, fuck it, it's a crying night tonight. Like that's what's happening. I'm not going out to do anything. I'm just going to cry a bunch and get all this out if I
get
can.
some ice cream, pull the curtains down. It's like the mistreat yourself.
Exactly. Oh man. And that's sometimes you need those days, you know. It's that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't do as a form of self-care because we've been taught that it's weak, you know, especially as guys. Like it's, you know, it's society is such an asshole about that, where they tell men especially that it's like it's weak to cry and stuff like that. Fuck that. Like it's not weak at all. I think it's actually strong to sit there and just get the poison out.
It's funny too, because I think like when I used to have hangups about crying, I approached it from the sort of the most like meathead man perspective ever of like, oh, you don't want to let chicks see you cry, you know, and then I've had like numerous girlfriends over the years tell me about, you know, like their sex fantasies were me like holding one of my friends with our shirts off while we wept together or something like that. And I was like, holy fuck.
That's a wild one.
Yeah,
that is a wild one. I should have
been crying a lot more with my shirt off, I guess.
Right. You can't be crying with a shirt on. Then it's not a turn on. Then it's just like, now I'm dry. Like this isn't working. You got to have your shirts off.
Maybe it's too many years of like watching Cops, but I always thought that my finest moment would become like, you know, crying in the middle of the street with my shirt off.
That feels like a very Shawshank Redemption thing, just in the rain, just crying and weeping.
The very specific Pornhub category.
Very, very specific. Somebody has searched it too. I'm sure they have.
The old Shawshank Redemption.
They're like porn titles are so weird like that too. Just like, yes. You watch this movie,
I guarantee that exists already.
It has to. You love this movie from Martin Scorsese. Here's the same movie but with dicks. Like it's just weird. So for anybody that doesn't know who you are, like my initial, like I said in the intro, my initial introduction to who you were was through the Unbookables. But then a mutual friend of ours, Jackie Furback, actually. Jackie
Rolls.
Yeah, she's fucking awesome. One of my best friends. Love her to death. She actually introduced me to you as an author because she was going to a book signing that you were doing. And she was like, hey, you should come check this out. I really feel like you dig what he does. And then I have a computer in my hand at all times. So I was like, all right, who the fuck is this guy? So I picked it up and, looked you up, and I was like, I'm definitely into this, and started reading some blurbs and stuff. And that's where I figured out who you were as an author. So tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do, because you're not just an author.
I don't know. I do sort of everything and anything to try and stay out of a regular job. Like what do you need me to do, Jonas? I'm free this evening. I write. I have a new collection out of my 7 best-selling Kindle singles that I published through Amazon. That's available now through Amazon, and signed copies I'm selling through my website and stuff. I make records. I will hopefully have some new stuff coming out next Bandcamp Friday. And I think I put out like 4 records in the pandemic so far. And I also tour doing a combination. It's like stand-up tragedy. I don't know. I play a bunch of songs and talk about my hurt feelings in between them. I teach writing at Yale every summer. That's such a fucking weird bit of resume candy.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that about you at all.
I know it's weird, right? I have very conflicted feelings about that. There's no way to say the name Yale without sounding like you're a douchebag. But I am incredibly proud of it. I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years now. But it's one of those things when you mention it, it feels like bragging or whatever.
Sure,
bragging. I get it. It's a weird thing. I don't know. What else? I own 1 cat and 1 dog, and I live in the sun-bleached wasteland of Phoenix, Arizona. And I don't know. That's all I got, man.
No, that's great. I mean, like, again, you're one of those people that's multi-talented. You have multimedia things going on. You're You are an accomplished author and a musician and a comedian, and you got a lot of stuff going on. And you originally, when you a while back, you lived in New York, right?
Yeah, New York City is actually, it's weird. I was thinking about this the other day as to like sort of where I'm from, because there's not really any place that I've lived where I would claim to be from, but I have spent the longest part of my life living in New York City. Moved there when I was 21 and left when I was 38, 39. I was there for 18 years.
Oh, damn. Okay. Yeah. You were there a while.
Yes.
I think that's when I had originally figured out who you were. I think you were living in New York at that time.
No, I was bouncing around. I left just before the book came out. I had a place in Greenpoint where I was paying like $200 a month, and then the landlord sold the building, and I'd lived there for 9 years, and the new landlord was like, "Well, you got 30 days," and I was like, "I fucking don't, buddy. Like, I know the law."
Right.
So I fought for as long as I could, and then I left in defeat, as we all will eventually.
It's funny that you said a $200 a month in Greenpoint. Like, you lived in fucking Greenpoint. $200 a month in Greenpoint is not even a full bed. Like, it's actually just the corner of the bed. You have to sleep where the animals usually sleep.
It's $200 for the wet spot.
Right, exactly. Greenpoint is one of the most expensive neighborhoods in New York now, which is insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, when I was living there, I'd been in the same apartment for whatever. I was in the same apartment for 9 years, and then they never raised the rent, so it was whatever $13.50, something like that, for a 2-bedroom apartment when we moved in. And then I went through like a series of roommates, and every time a roommate moved out, I would just sort of be like, "Oh, what are people charging in the neighborhood?" Until finally I was charging whatever, $1,000 or something for the other room.
That makes sense.
It was such a sweet deal, man.
Oh yeah. New York is weird like that, because with New York, sometimes you'll get those things where you get an illegal dwelling, an illegal apartment, where it's just like, no, I live in the basement with no windows that happens to be really moist all the time, but I only pay $300 a month, so it's awesome. It's very weird like that. That's like a very New York thing, and I feel like it's probably an LA thing too. They probably have something like that in LA. But like, you're not going to the middle of the country and living in some windowless basement that's illegal, like, just to survive. Like, that's just totally not a thing that's outside of those circles.
Dude, last summer I found like a really nice doghouse that somebody was throwing away. So and it was in like the back alley. So I grabbed it and like put it in my yard for my dog, and my dog looked at it and was like, "No, fuck no. Are you crazy? No." And so it was in my backyard for like 6 weeks. And then I was like, I gotta fucking get rid of this thing. They're like, "From the alley you came, and to the alley you shall return." So I stuck it back out in the alley, and then I like put it out in the alley and closed the gate. I wasn't even done walking away, and a homeless dude was like, "Score!"
Nice.
And I was like out there the next morning throwing the trash away, and he was sleeping in the doghouse, and I was like, "This is America."
That is about as America in a nutshell as possible. That's insanity.
Yeah.
But also, you know what though? That was probably the best day of that dude's life for a while. Like, he's just like, I got a fucking roof over my head. It's just a tiny roof.
It's the next wave of the tiny house movement.
Right. That actually is what you would get for $300 a month in Greenpoint, is that doghouse. That's actually what you would get.
It was a nice doghouse, dude.
I'm sure it was. It's really funny. This actually is a good transition into what we're going to talk about today, because one of the things that reminded me that I wanted to do this episode is you're an animal person, you have a cat, you have a dog. But one of the things that reminded me of this is the post that you made about how did you refer to your cat? How did you refer to her? She was I
think I called her like a mostly dead trash princess or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a million. I mean, everybody, when you get an animal, the way that you know that you're losing touch with reality from loving that animal too much is when you start throwing 40 different nicknames at them,
Sure.
And so, she was my little, street urchin, chimney sweep. She was disgusting. She was really, it's like she disappeared every night and would go and crawl into some corpse's butthole to sleep and then come back the next morning. I was like, what the fuck happened to you?
She's like, "What's up, Dad? I stink more today. How you doing?"
Yeah, her name was Manu, and at the end of her life, I guess she had like tooth rot bad enough that she stopped cleaning herself. That's what it was.
Oh, that makes sense, actually.
Yeah, and man, when a cat doesn't clean themselves, I mean, we mock cats for the amount of time they spend cleaning themselves, but I'll tell you what, you spend 10 minutes with a cat that is no longer able to clean itself, and you will be so grateful that other cats clean themselves so much.
Oh, it's insane. I've had cats my whole life. I've had probably as long as I can remember, I've had cats. And I remember I used to give them shit too, like my friends and stuff. I would joke about how much they would clean themselves and stuff like that. But I did have one cat that she was just old as fuck. Like she was one of those cats that we were surprised that she got as old as she did until we realized that she was like that shitty grandparent that lives to like 105 just because they're a cunt. You know what I mean? Just like they just
racism is the secret to longevity.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like the worst grandparent. They're like, fuck you. I'm making it to 110 and you're going to hate every second of it.
So this Strom Thurmond gene.
Big time. So this cat was very similar. She was in her name was PC and it stood for Pussycat because she looked like the cat from Pepe Le Pew that Pepe Le Pew was constantly trying to sexually assault.
Yes.
Like that's what she looked like. So she lived to be 21 and she was the last year, I would say the last 2 years of her life, she was just bitchy and miserable and she got mangy and she got just gross because she was old and sore and she was like, listen, I'm gonna die soon, so I'm not gonna clean anything. So she did that, and it was just like, oh, this is a huge difference between cats that clean themselves all the time. You smell like actual garbage and you're an indoor cat. What have you been doing?
Is it like cat oil or something? Do they make the stink themselves? I mean, please no one write in and answer this, but I wonder, but I don't want to know.
It's got to be. I think it's got to be the oil and the dander that cats do. Because that's first off, when somebody told me what dander was, I was like, oh, cool. So that's why I have allergy problems because I'm just breathing in dead skin all day. That's like I didn't need that fucking knowledge. Thank you, veterinarian friend of mine. They're like, yeah, that's why you're breathing weird. It's just skin.
Yeah, just breathing in a cloud of mortality.
Yep, just nothing that, just full on epidermis, just right into the face. But yeah, that's what happened with her too. Like at the end of her life, she was just like, I'm just not going to clean anymore. And you're going to have to deal with my smelly ass until I'm done. And funny enough, those last 2 years or so though, man, we love that cat more than we ever had, It was like one of those situations. And that was kind of a thing, with yours, like when you made that post and you talked about losing her, it brought up feelings that I've had before about people, but also about animals. The cat that I had before the one I have now, he was the one that made the move to New York with me, me and Lauryn, the co-host here. Me and her moved to New York together. We drove a moving truck for the whole time, which is probably why we broke up. We were like in the moving truck with each other for 49 hours. So we moved here with the cat. And he was dope. He was so cool. Like he was a great cat. He was just the most chill thing in the world. But I remember when he died because I'd come home from work and he was just chilling. Like he wasn't, he was just doing his cat thing. And I went to go pick him up like I usually would when I get home from work. And as soon as I touched the underside of him, he let out a meow that he had never let out before. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, is this the time? Like, what's going on? And I tried to I know quite a bit about animals just from, experiences that I've had throughout my life. So I was like kind of trying to do the thing where I was checking with him and seeing what hurt and stuff like that. And it was pretty quickly I realized that something was bad. And Lauryn hadn't been living with me at the time. She'd been living I was living in New Jersey in the place that we had gotten when we moved here. She was living in New York at the time. But I texted her and I was like, you need to come out to New Jersey because I think it's the end. You got to come out here. So she did. And we took him to the vet. And sure enough, it was like heart failure or something like that. He had apparently had it for most of his life. But that's a thing with cats, apparently, is that when they have heart failure, it just all of a sudden goes from 0 to 1,000,
Yeah.
So we had to put him to sleep, and like
I remember this actually,
dude, I've lost animals before, but fuck, like that was probably the hardest experience that I've ever had when it came to an animal in my life, and like coming, to the end of their life. Like just soul ripping, absolute fucking sadness. And it fucked me up for a while. Like that was something that kind of like the way your post was talking about. It was so hard to get over it, like just because we had such a close relationship. And it was just like, fuck, I haven't felt like this about a person in years. And, I'm this way about this cat.
For people who don't get cats, who aren't into cats, it's hard to explain it to them, because if everybody loves dogs, and if you're a dog person, you're like, well, my dog can go hiking with me and we go swimming together, my dog can do tricks and play catch and stuff like that. And a cat can't do anything, and that's not true. Cats can do one thing, and they can do one thing only, which is to love you unconditionally. And
they really do.
Fuck them for that, because it's so it's so hard. When you were talking about your cat having heart issues, my heart dropped, because my soft little pumpkin head here, my cat Elsie has touched the old brain damage and maybe other things. I'm not sure. But when she loves laying in the sun, and she loves sort of just soaking up the sun, but she'll lay there until she starts panting. And it's not, cats should not pant. That's a sign that something horrible is about to happen.
Yeah, it means they're overheating like crazy.
Yeah. And she does that on a regular basis. She seems to overheat very quickly and very easily. And she doesn't seem to have the sense to get out of the sun to stop overheating. And
so that's the part of her brain that's missing. It's just like you're getting real warm. You should stay in this spot and just get warmer. Like this is.
It would make sense that I have a cat like that, because that's sort of how I am in relationships, where I'm like, this is terrible. You should get her name tattooed on you.
But God, you and me both, sir.
Living in Phoenix with a cat who doesn't know when to get out of the fucking heat. I'm like, oh God, living in the shadow of death here.
Yeah, of course. You had to get the cat that would do that in that location. Of all people, you had to do that, of course.
Yeah.
It's weird, because when it comes to animals, like you have a relationship with the animals, and like you said about dogs, I love dogs. I don't necessarily like living with dogs because their energy doesn't match me at all. And even the most chill dog is way too fucking excited for me. Just excited about life and just existing. I'm like, oh, you have no fucking problems in your life. You know nothing, dog.
No, dogs are like fucking hippies, and I'm like, just shut up, go fucking play hacky sack somewhere. I have a dog now too, and I did not want a dog. I love dogs. I always grew up with dogs. I fetishize dogs, like the way some young girls have the horse thing. I had the poster of dogs that had every single different dog breed, and I knew all of them by sight. And could walking down the street, oh, it's a Boston Terrier. That's a just little fucking dog nerd. And then I wound up with this puppy last year. My girlfriend at the time, really wanted a dog, and I was like, oh, this will save the relationship. And then
that's a fun game.
And then 6 weeks later, I have a dog and no girlfriend. And I went through kind of a weird dark patch of my dog, I don't know, a couple months ago, where it was too much. I just couldn't deal with it. And I thought about giving her away, and I thought about finding somebody else who wanted a dog, who wanted that sort of constant energy, constant attention. Sure. And I was like, it's not a mean thing, because I would find a great home for her. It would be easy to find a home for her. And I felt like having, a fucking Casey Anthony moment or something, where I was thinking about drowning. I just felt, I feel so guilty for ever having that thought. I woke up this morning in a fucking horrible mood, and my dog was like, another beautiful day. I was like, fucking go Go play in the highway, you know. But then I went for a hike with her, and she was just like, you know, look, a bug.
Right. Just so excited about the tiniest thing.
Yeah. And I realized, you know, the reason that I hate and resent my dog is because she does her best to drag me out of those dark moods, and I need that. And
sure,
if the price for that is having an animal that I resent, then so be it.
You know, that's like, it's an interesting thing to talk about that too, because first off, the thing that you said about potentially rehoming, you know, your dog, I want to point this out because I'm very much an animal advocate. I fucking love animals. I always have. But if anybody ever is in a position where they don't feel like they can care for their animal the way that the animal should be cared for, they should never, ever, ever feel guilty about rehoming an animal, because that's what's going to be best for the animal in a case like that. Now, with your situation, it sounds like obviously it was a little bit more than just, it wasn't just like, I can't take care of this dog, I have to get rid of her. It wasn't like that. It, you know, yours was more complicated, but there are some times where people, they can't take care of an animal the way that it should be taken care of. And in situations like that, fuck, by all means, you know, rehome the animal to somebody that can use an animal in their life, you know, like do that.
If you find a new home, if you find a good home for your dog or your cat or what, or your hamster or whatever, the
rehoming a hamster, you know what, that probably does happen.
The animal's not going to miss you. The animal's going to be fine. The animal's going to go on with the rest of their life, as long as like it's a good home and they're happy, and there's people or animals, or, you know, there's somebody there to care for them. They're going to be okay. It's just us. We are going to feel sad that we turned our backs on them or whatever. But animals, just, they go on with their lives. You know, I put a picture of a horse with no eye on the back of a record, and people were like, oh my God, that's so fucked up. And I was like, it looks really fucked up and it looks really sad, but that horse was fine. And that's one of the things about that's why animals are superior to human beings. Like, if they lose a limb or they lose an eye or whatever, they don't grieve it. They're just like, okay, this is what I'm working with now. I have to turn my head to be able to see over there, and they just go on with their lives. You know, we write fucking albums about it.
I saw that's so true too, because comparing animals to humans, like a human, you can fuck up their whole day with a hangnail. But I saw a video of a cat that did not have two front legs; it only had two back legs. Oh, now, yeah. It was terrifying. However, that cat was fucking chilling. He was running around that house on just his back legs, freaking everybody out. It was amazing. And that cat didn't have a care in the fucking world. It was just like, this is my life now.
Man, I always feel those are the most effective anti-drug messages. You know, when they did all the like dare pro shit, and it was like, you know, a drug addict, you know, sprinting away from the cops on the street, or like stealing shit or whatever. I was like, who cares? But if you show me a creepy cat that just walks on its hind legs, that will prevent me from like eating mushrooms for a long time.
Oh God. Oh man, if I saw that when I was like still doing drugs and I was on acid or something, that would fuck my life up for a month. I wouldn't be able to sleep. It would just be like, no, there's a back legs only cat that just runs around in my fucking brain whenever I close my eyes.
McGruff, the crime dog, fucking Limpy the cat is coming for you, buddy.
You know, my mom is a big animal lover too. She has a whole house full of broken animals. And I do say that very literally. Every one of her animals has something fucked up about it. And that's because that's what she does. She just brings in the ones that are fucked up, and she's like, all right, well, you have a home now.
Yep.
And she's awesome like that. My mom is salt of the earth. She's amazing. But one of her cats, the literal name is Tiny Cat, because Tiny Cat, this is such a fucked up story. My sister was driving behind this fucking piece of shit redneck, and he threw the kitten out of the side of the car. It was a truck. So he throws this kitten out of the side of the truck. My sister loses her shit, freaks out. They pull over. This cat's all fucked up. And they, instead of taking it to the vet, they immediately took it to my mom. And they were like, because it was really close to my mom's house. So my mom was like, this cat might not make it overnight, you know. we got to take it to the vet and see what's going on. And long story short, that cat is still alive, still lives with my mom. This was years ago. This is, I want to say Tiny Cat's probably 8 or 9 years old at least now. But the reason that her name is Tiny Cat is because the two things that got fucked up when she got thrown out of that car is that it broke her growth plates. So she didn't grow any bigger than she was at that time.
Uh-huh.
But her tail kept growing like it was an adult cat. So she has like a squirrel body now. So she's like this little tiny cat with a long fucking bushy tail. And also when she got thrown out of the car, it caused some brain damage too. So she's got like, she slopes to the side a little bit. She's got like kind of a little stroke face going on.
If you don't send me a picture of this cat once we wrap up this episode, I hereby revoke my podcast permissions.
Right.
This sounds amazing. I would need a little Pokemon like that in my life.
Oh, she's incredible. And I absolutely will send you a picture of her. Now, this is the thing that's cool about her, that whenever I go home to visit my parents, we have like kind of an ongoing joke where it's like Tiny Cat doesn't know how to cat today. So she'll fucking run around the house. She'll run into shit. She'll like hiss at stuff that's not there. And she'll just be like, she's just having a non-cat day. Like she's just, the brain soup is bad. But then when she does turn it on and she goes into full cat mode, sweetest cat in the world. She'll cuddle up with you. She'll purr. She'll chase shit. She'll do everything like that. And then the switch will flip again and it'll be like, nope, she's barking. She's barking and she's a cat. Like we just, you know what? We got to let Tiny Cat do her shit right now.
I think we all have days like that, man.
We all do. We all have the bad brain soup days. One of the things that you mentioned about, the thing with your dog where you were just reaching a point where you couldn't deal with it anymore. This is something you and I had talked about very briefly, and it's something I wanted to bring up on the show here. The pandemic over the last year, not even just over the last year, but over the last, 2 years or however long this fucking nightmare has been happening. You were having a hard time dealing with it, weren't you?
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
Dive into this.
Yeah. I really had a fucking miserable time. I mean, it's funny because in the early days of the pandemic, I made this post, where everybody was sort of collectively like, what the fuck's going on? It's been long enough now that I think that we've sort of accustomed to living in the future or whatever, or living in no future or whatever this is now. But in those, those early days, I was like I was getting up to crack of dawn and like running and, sort of preparing. I had like gotten this RV that I was like going to trick it out in case we had to like fucking go into hiding or something like that. And like,
I remember the RV. Yeah.
Doing everything I could to like, protect my, my mom, my family, my loved ones, and I was up for it. I was like this is our great war. This is the greatest challenge that we'll see in our lives. And I'm ready, and I'm just going to fucking do what needs to be done. And I was sort of mostly doing it. And then I lost it. Yeah. And it's funny because there are so many sort of parallels to, zombie movies and stuff like that, where there's a staple of every zombie movie is the person who gets bit and then conceals it, right?
Sure.
Person, no, it's just a cough. I just have allergies or whatever, and then everybody gets fucking COVID,
right?
It's all, so it hasn't just been like that with COVID, but it's also been like that with the sort of the COVID insanity, where somebody be fine one day and then the next day they're not,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in therapy now, and I'm learning a lot about what makes me tick. And that has been a fucking shit show. I wouldn't wish that on Henry Kissinger, but it's tricky because it's like, when I was writing about this, when a an old man, 76, gutter alcoholic, he's lived on the street his whole life, he gets pushed, falls and hits his head and dies, because of it's high blood pressure and sort of like, poor heart disease and poor health and all that stuff. Did he die because he was old, or did he die because he had these pre-existing health conditions, or did he die because he was pushed? So when I go back and look when I go back and look at sort of my great unraveling, like, was it something that had happened when I was a kid, or a bunch of things that had happened when I was a kid that I just sort of stored up and not dealt with? Was it pandemic insanity that finally came for me, or was it, I had something traumatic happen in my life in November of 2020? Was it just that, and there is no post-mortem for your insanity or for trauma or whatever. You never get to go in it. There's no 23andMe where you're like, oh, it was 44%, my dad not loving me, and 15%, the alcoholism, and there is no, so you just sort of have to live with that ambiguity and say, well, I guess it was everything, yeah, it just got to be too much. And I was definitely I don't know. I mean, maybe the right analogy is that, you're riding a horse, right? And when you're riding a horse, the things could be going well where you feel like you're sort of in control and everything's working the way that's supposed to. Or if you sort of get out of the rhythm with the horse as to the way your butt's falling into the saddle, then you're sort of like bouncing all over the place and you don't feel like. And then there's like a third option, which is, sort of like the Mel Brooks option, where you like the saddle comes loose and flips and then you're under the horse, right? So you're you're still moving, right? You're still technically on the horse or whatever, but it's fucking terrifying,
beat the shit out of you the whole time.
Yes. And if you let go, you're gonna get fucking trampled to death, So there's definitely, like, my life has ups and downs, like any life, and but then in 2021, that was when I slipped under the horse,
Sure.
It went outside of the normal range of good times, bad times. And then, just lost my damn mind.
So the thing I wanted to mention about this, especially because I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, especially just with what the way the world has been over the last 2 years. And I think everybody had their own version of a hard time during the pandemic at a certain point. And there was like that breaking point that I think a lot of people had. And my question is, like, so you said that you're in therapy now. Was that something that happened, do you think, because of you hitting that breaking point during the pandemic, or was that something that happened before the therapy?
I'm in therapy because of how the last couple of years have gone.
Okay.
I went to therapy for a long time when I was in New York, and I didn't really feel like I needed it because because I had quit drinking on my own, because compared to most of my friends at fucking Mars Bar or wherever, my upbringing was a piece of cake. I hadn't been like fucking locked in the basement and like serially raped or molested or abused, or, the physically kicked, my parents kicked the shit out of me, or grew up in group homes, or, you know what I mean? There are some real fucking horror shows in New York. There are everywhere. But
New York is a special kind of flavor of that.
Yes. And that was really where I sort of came to awareness about how largely like privileged my childhood was. The so I did that thing that you shouldn't do. I compared my situation to the situation of other people, and to say, well, I shouldn't take up these whatever healthcare resources or whatever. They should go to somebody else, because I'm mostly okay.
Right.
And I did have a therapist for a while, like a long time in New York. Great guy who was super helpful, but also he was a dude, and he was from New York, and I think he grew up in Stuyvesant Town, and so there was a lot of stuff that he and I really like saw eye to eye on, of just sort of like, I don't know, dealing with shit on the street.
Sure.
That maybe somebody from I don't know, the fucking Ohio suburbs or whatever might not get, that like whenever you go out, anything might happen, and you
right.
have to be ready to fucking deal with stuff. But also he was a guy, he was a straight guy, he was a white guy. One of the frustrating things about friendships with men or relationships with men is that we always have to it always turns into a dick measuring competition.
Yeah.
It always has, we have to undermine each other.
Yep.
Of, oh, I love you, man. I love you too. No homo.
Oh,
right?
fuck.
Somebody always fucking does that. And
every time.
Just be a fucking man and tell another man that you love him, period, line break, end of chapter, end of story, right? That's it.
Yeah.
That's just like, just be a fucking real man and tell people you love them. That's,
anytime one of my friends says no homo, it's just like, I want to be like, I will kiss you on the fucking mouth. Just stop. Like, just don't say that stupid shit.
Dude, the last person who said that to me, was a trans man who was buying a trailer from me, and he didn't want me to know that he had transitioned from female to male. So he sort of affected this kind of homophobic thing. And like he said, no, I was like helping him with the trailer or whatever, and he was like, oh, I really, I love you so much for doing this, no homo. And I was like, and I just like winced, and I was like, and then found out later that, he told me, and I was like, oh, that's why you did that.
Sure.
Don't do that.
That throws another wrinkle into it too. For sure.
Yeah.
It's funny you said that about men too, because I don't have very many guy friends for that very specific reason. It just, that whole always turns into a dick judging contest. It's just like, I don't have time for that anymore. I don't. I absolutely don't.
And, one of the things that I found was that it really held me back in therapy was, in that I had to be constantly performing for him. Right. So I'm like cracking jokes and like, and then she says this, you know what I mean? Like,
oh God,
the funny thing about, it's like, oh God, I just hate myself for, but I have a female therapist now, and I had another female therapist who was like significantly younger than I was, and I couldn't do it. It didn't work. Like getting life advice from somebody who's 26. I was like, yeah,
sure.
Nah.
It's like, you're giving me advice from a book. That's what you're doing.
Go suffer some more.
Right.
And
you gotta live through some shit.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's my own bias, but whatever.
I've totally understandable.
I've also heard tons of brilliant shit out of people who are 26, 25 younger. So fucking.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the therapist I have now is a woman. She's probably a couple years older than I am. And she's been incredibly helpful. I mean, I think it's part of where I was when I went in there. I was ready to fucking try anything, Jonas. I would have, I went to a psychic. I was in and I don't believe in that shit at all. I
know you well enough to know that was a Hail Mary that you fucking threw.
Yes, absolutely. And I really, I would have done anything. But going to my therapist in that state of being like, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to fucking try anything to change. It meant I was in a good situation to affect meaningful change and lots of change quickly. When you go to your therapist and you start crying in the parking lot before you go in, that's a good sign that you're like you're ready.
It's time to make those changes, which is really funny. That kind of transitions into another part of the conversation that I was going to have with you, but also like the therapy thing. So I've gone through therapy too, and the pandemic actually helped me when it came to therapy, because I was kind of in a similar situation to you. Like, here's the thing with me. I'm a comic. I perform, comedy all over New York, but I don't like the networking aspect of it.
Oh, God.
In the sense that I fucking hate going out to a comedy club and having to schmooze with people and kiss ass and act like I have this relationship with these people that I don't fucking have. Like, it's all manufactured bullshit that I don't like. So I'll go and I'll hang with the people that I'm actually friends with, and I'll be cordial and say hi to the people that I don't know. But like, I'm not going to sit there and pick their brain about what fucking show that they book and all this other bullshit. I don't do that. So I kind of like being at home. I like being among my things and my cat and my stuff that I'm working on. Like, I like that. But then when the pandemic kind of forced me to do that, I was like, oh, fuck you. Now I want to go do everything that you said that I can't do. And I'm stuck in this fucking house. And then it was also like, I'm also stuck in my brain, which was not a good place to be.
Yeah.
Like, it was not a good place to be alone in my own head. And that's where therapy started to become. I'd gone to therapy also before, and I had stopped for various different reasons, but this was where my brain kicked in, and it was like, oh, you're not done yet. Like, you for sure need to still go back and deal with some shit. And I remember the specific time that it was like really time for me to do that. And it was when a family member of mine died very suddenly. It was my cousin. And he was a guy that I grew up with. Like, me and him were partners in crime. Like, I fucking love this dude. He was like a brother to me, like an older brother to me that I never had, blah, 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 blah. Fucking drank himself to death. And he died literally in the line at the grocery store with a handle of vodka in his fucking hand that he was buying to take home to drink more of. Fucking destroyed me. I was at work. I had just started going back to work from like pandemic stuff being lifted. I was like, all right, I'm back to, being able to be part of the, the world again and blah, blah, blah. And I get this phone call that had happened. And that was the time that grief came in, where I realized very quickly how I was going to have to deal with that. So I called my boss and I was like, hey, I got to go. I just found out that a family member died. Like, I'm sorry, I got to go. And she was like, fucking, yeah, of course, go home. As soon as I hung up that phone, I collapsed in a pile of tears in the middle of a fucking Whole Foods. Like, it was just like, I don't give a fuck. Like, he cares a lot about avocados. Like, no, I was just
that's
fucking,
white grief right there, bro.
God, dude. It was the whitest crying in the world. Just in the middle of a produce section, just weeping. And they're like, I don't know how to approach this person. What is he crying about?
They're like, but sir, those are organic. You're okay.
Those strawberries are on sale. That's not the real price.
Yeah, plenty of reasons to weep in a Whole Foods.
Right. So I'm just sitting here just fucking crying. And the thing is that the longer I cried, the less of a fuck I gave about anybody around me.
Yeah.
Because I had to get it out. Like, it was so sudden, and it was so like, I just had to get it out. So I got it out. I go home. I'm thinking that I'm okay, right? I'm thinking like, all right, I got that grief out. I got that crying out. Fucking nope. I didn't sleep for 2 days. Like, I just could not deal with it. I legitimately couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
And I got on the phone with my therapist. I was like, I think I got to come back, because I got some thoughts going through my head that are not fucking good. Like, they're not good. And I gotta come back. So they brought me back in, and like, we dug through a lot of the stuff. But one of the things that I wanted to mention about this, and what it comes back to, is that one thing you and I have in common is recovery.
Yep.
And I think also we have in common that we approach it in a non-traditional way, I guess is the best way to put it. I'll say my piece on it. I'm not against AA. I'm not against meetings. I'm not against any of that stuff. As far as like if it works for people, by all means do it. But I definitely don't think that it's the only way to achieve recovery. And I think everybody kind of has to go their own route of doing it and doing what works for them and what keeps the bottle out of their hand, you know, or whatever happens to be their vice of choice. Basically doing whatever it takes to not go back into that place. And therapy was one of those things that did help me with it. And early on in my recovery, I did do meetings. I did go to AA, and it just turned out that it was at a certain point, it was no longer helpful to me. So, you know, I developed my own thing that I used to deal with it. But man, the therapy for sure helped, because there was a couple of times where I was like, oh man, I still have my Coke dealer's number in my phone. I still do. And you know why I do? Because that fucking dude would text me every like 4 or 5 months. I would get a fucking text from him that would be like, hey dude, new number. And I would tell him like, dude, I've been sober for like 3 years. Like, I'm not coming back. And he was like, no, it's fine. If you know anybody else that's looking though, it's like, you fucking customer service is a 10, but come on. Like,
it's like herpes, man. You're like, all right, I got this behind me. And then you're like, hey, still here.
I'm a little stressed. I'm feeling a flare up.
Yep.
So it was like I was getting those thoughts where I was like, oh, I could totally drink away this pain. And then it was just like, then I had to remember, nope, that leads to more pain. That leads to more shittier things. Go to the therapist. Don't go to the bottle, you know. And it went on that. But I'm going to be 5 years completely clean come June 10th. So
that's
I
awesome.
Stuck to it at least.
Congrats, man. That's the thing, you know, it's tricky. I mean, yeah, newsflash. Sobriety is tricky. It's tricky because if you make it by the skin of your teeth, or if you just fucking sail through it, you still made it, right?
Right.
But going forward, if you're just making it by the skin of your teeth, you gotta tweak something, because getting the next 5 years will still be challenging, even if you sailed through the first 5. But if you went through the first 5 like by just like hanging on by a fingernail, then you gotta like tweak your program. My relationship with AA is like the opposite of my relationship with the band Radiohead, where Radiohead, I think, is actually a fine band. They're okay. It doesn't kill me. Their fans are the fucking worst. You put me in a room with several men in their late 20s who want to talk to me about Radiohead, I'll jump out the fucking window. That is the opposite of how I feel about people in AA.
Right.
I feel like there's got to be a tag there about kid AA. Ugh,
oh me. God.
Yeah, terrible. The AA computer. The can't. That's what. So
you can never turn the comics brain off.
I know.
Never turn it off.
Disgusting.
It's always there. It's always there.
And which is to say that if you're going to AA and it's working for you, it's helping you, I support you 100%. I think the system itself is deeply flawed. I think there's lots of big problems, systemic problems with it. I think it needs to evolve and transform. One of the things people would always be like, well, what's the alternative? And I never had an alternative to offer them, because I never went to meetings and never did that. But I spoke recently, the Satanic Temple, which is an atheist organization. They're not actually literal Satanists, but that would,
as an aside real quick, fucking love the Satanic Temple.
Yeah.
Lucian Greaves is dope. I've done interviews with him. He's
cool.
Fucking great.
Cool.
Yeah.
But I did a meeting of the sober faction of the Satanic Temple, and that was and there were a lot of gay and lesbian folks there, a lot of people there, a lot of trans folks, a lot of people who are outside of the norm of society, which are those are my people. And I totally felt like, oh, this is what it would have looked like had I found my tribe, and I think their 7 traditions, make a lot of sense. So if people are looking for a support group for, quitting drinking or staying sober, I think that's a good place to look. I have not stayed continuously clean and sober for 13 years. I think I'm coming up on 13. I've been an outspoken proponent of the restorative powers of mushrooms and DMT and other hallucinogenics and stuff like that.
DMT was a wild fucking ride.
Yes.
I
hate that that's associated with Joe Rogan, because I think people think it's like the Monster Energy drink of drugs, and it's fucking not. It's
Bang energy brain.
It will transform you against your will. But one of the things that I really fucked up last year was with ketamine, because I've been reading all these things about ketamine therapy, and I was at that point of desperation of just sort of flailing around like I'll try anything.
Sure.
And Lanigan had a song about ketamine that I loved. He had sent me like a demo that he recorded on his phone. And this is why you must always betray your friends, because Lanigan sent me that demo and said, don't send this to anybody else. And I didn't, because I'm a good friend. And in the process, I like switched phones and lost that demo. And it would be so meaningful for me to have that demo. And I'm rewarded for keeping my promise to him and keeping that private by losing it. And
that's also darkly poetic, because he took it with him and left it with you, and you're the last person that got to hear it. And that's honestly, that, like I said, that's very darkly poetic in a super fucked up way, but also at the same time, that is an honor for you, you were the last one that got to hear it.
It was an honor. I mean, it felt like a fucking blessing, to have somebody who I looked up to that much trust me. The trust is a huge thing. But when I was sort of like nosing around at the bottom there, I filled out an online form for ketamine therapy. Mm-hmm. And they were like, congratulations, you're a great fit. It'll be $1,300, please. And I was like, you go fuck yourself. I know a guy.
Spoiler alert, drugs are expensive.
I knew somebody who could get it for me on the street, and and somebody who I trusted that it wouldn't be fucking laced with fentanyl or whatever.
Oh, you mean so you weren't getting like ketamine around the corner from the Comedy Cellar off McDougal Street?
No, God, no. So I went down that rabbit hole, and at first it was very helpful, and I sort of like learned a lot from it, and I felt like in some ways it sort of helped me to release stuff. Somebody said, ketamine is like Vaseline for shedding trauma.
Ooh,
that's
but
I would say it's more like chapstick. And if you have chapped lips and you put chapstick on, it fixes your chapped lips, and then a month later you're putting chapstick on all fucking day.
Yep.
And ketamine became, went from being a thing I did to try and help myself move forward to just being a thing I did.
So it became a drug addiction. This is
the addiction's such an ugly word, Jonas.
It became a routine. Let's call it that.
It became a project. It became a routine. I mean, last summer was really rough for me in a lot of ways, because of all the bullshit going on in my head. But then also I didn't have a vehicle with air conditioning that was reliable, so I couldn't like leave town. I don't know if you know this, Phoenix is a sun-baked hellscape, and in the summertime, it's just a fucking huge nightmare. I was in a bad relationship and like trying to keep that together. I tried to go on, I can't remember if it was Zoloft or Lexapro. I tried to go on brain meds, and that just did not fucking work for me. and I was just, and with, so like COVID shutdowns and stuff, I couldn't go anywhere. So I was just trapped here. But I had my dealer's number, so I just sort of like kept doing that. And the takeaway, I don't know what the takeaway is. Am I better off now for having done ketamine? I don't know. Am I worse off? I don't know. There was definitely some stuff that was helpful, and and sharing it with some friends was really cool. But it transported me from my daily agony too well.
Sure.
And that I was just sort of like, well, I'll do that escape again. I'll do that escape again.
Yeah. That's, it's one of the reasons that I wanted to bring up the drug use and the recovery and stuff like that, is it links back to the thing that we were talking about with therapy. When it comes to finding, to making therapy work, you have to hit some sort of a rock bottom. And in order to like really open up and accept it, accept the therapy, accept the work, accept the, the help that you would get from there. But that's also the way it is with drugs too. Like, as far as like the actual like addiction goes, like with mine was Coke and booze, and New York is singing outside for anybody.
Dude, it makes me so homesick to hear the fucking sirens.
I know.
Yeah.
God. It's really funny. No matter what, like this, and this is all staying on the fucking recording. I don't care. I host a podcast in New York. What do you want from me? But no matter what you do to noise muting or anything, New York is like, no, fuck you. I'm still here. Like,
yep.
There's no way to get around it. But yeah, when it comes to addiction stuff, like with me, and mine was Coke and booze. So those were my two main things. They went hand in hand, because with one came the other a lot of times. I would get drunk and then I would be like, I'm too drunk, I should do some Coke. I'm not as drunk anymore, but I've got a little too much Coke in me, so I should take another shot, and blah, blah, blah. But then I hit my rock bottom, which was I did so much Coke one night that I couldn't even close my mouth. Like, my jaw was so tense that I couldn't even close it. And I was like, I've clearly done too much cocaine tonight. I need to come down. What the fuck do I do? So I took Xanax. And I took way too many because I woke up the next morning and I was like, ooh, I don't think I want to be alive anymore. And it was weird because I wasn't sad, but it did whatever it did to my brain, where my brain was just like, nah, it's time. Let's go. And then I attempted that, and obviously it didn't work because I'm still here. But it was such a catastrophically failed attempt. Like, to the point where it was comical. Like, I tried to take a bunch of pills to go to sleep forever, and I ended up curing my insomnia. Like, it was just like, I couldn't have fucked that up anymore.
That's amazing.
Right. It was
that's the first line to a fucking Moth story or something. keep that. I have to disagree with you. I think people can change without hitting rock bottom. And I'll go deeper and say that I think perpetuating this myth of a rock bottom and an epiphany is actually dangerous.
Okay.
And here's why. You can change your life just by recognizing that drugs or alcohol bring more harm into your life than good things. You don't
fully agree with that.
You don't need to be an alcoholic in order to stop drinking. Or to dial your drinking way back. All you need to, it's just the ratio, right? 45 years ago, when I was born and time began, everything was binary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black or white, boy or girl, gay or straight, all those things. And then as we've evolved as human beings, we can see gender on a spectrum. We can see sexual orientation on a spectrum,
right.
I really think that sort of addiction science and pop recovery stuff is still 50 years in the past.
Sure.
I've had a million rock bottoms, and all of them contributed a little bit to me being sober today. we say like, oh, you gotta touch the hot stove before you realize that it's hot. But for most of us, we need to touch it 40 times.
Sure.
And every one of those times was essential. And maybe the last time we were like, okay, I'm hitting rock bottom now, but I don't think it would be rock bottom without the 39 rock bottoms that came before.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, for me, like, I had an epiphany that I was an alcoholic when I was 17, and, a short 15 years later, I quit drinking,
right.
So I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I have a different opinion. And I think that, and I think to talk about it as the TRB, the rock bottom, encourages people who are nosing around the bottom to be like, well, I got to go out and have one more big night and hit rock bottom, and you can live there for years.
Fully agree with that.
Or you can die looking for your rock bottom.
So this is why I like having these conversations, because this is something, you just brought something up to me that kind of makes me have to reiterate what I was saying, and also change it a little bit, clarify some stuff. When I say, when I personally say a rock bottom, I'm not saying necessarily that it has to be some catastrophic event or anything like that. I think the wording of rock bottom is incorrect for what I'm trying to get across. I think there has to be a thing that happens, whether it be big or small, that flips the switch in your brain that makes you want to get the help.
Yeah, there has to be that. I mean, maybe it's just the needle twitching from unwilling to willing. Right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just like something that moves that needle.
Al Kinane has that great thing about, like, it's like, well, I stopped drinking. I didn't quit drinking. I stopped drinking. I haven't hit rock bottom. I hit the sides a lot.
Right.
Hit the sides an awful lot,
Yeah.
And I do think that that's, it's important to see it that way. But I mean, that's when I talk to people and they're like, oh, how did you quit drinking? How do you do it? I just can't seem to do it. And I do honestly believe this, that when you're unwilling, nothing will fucking work.
For sure.
And when you're willing, anything can work.
Yeah.
You can be like, I'm going to fucking yoga myself sober, or I'm going to Dark Souls myself sober. And if you got your mind right, if you've had that, time to change. I got to change everything. I wrote at some point, I can't remember if we made it into a book or not, but I wrote about like shitting my pants close to my house, and then just being like, I gotta just,
I shit my pants on my doorstep one time, and I was just like, really? I didn't even, I was at the front door. All right, get your life together, Jonas.
Wait, were you leaving the house or coming home?
I was coming home. That was the worst. It was like my asshole synced up with the Wi-Fi, and it was just like, all right, we're online.
Dude, if you're leaving home,
fucking, that would be the worst.
I don't know. It's like, fuck, today's canceled.
Yeah, no more today.
but I said something about like that cold turd in my pants being like a fucking billboard from God that just said, you must change your life.
Right.
And I was just like, fucking everything's got to go. The pants, the underwear, the socks. I got to throw it all away. Yeah. Start over again clean.
And that's kind of what I was saying, like with the whole thing, is just like, it can be any moment. It can be any it can be any situation. It can be any moment. It could be something as simple as a word from another person that hits you a certain way that makes you go, oh, fuck, I got to change this. Mine happened to be extreme because it was that I tried to fucking off myself. But I know plenty of people that it didn't have to be that catastrophic situation that happened. It was a thing where, like, I have a friend of mine who's been clean for quite a while, and it was because he was he was going through it. He had a pretty fucking gnarly drug addiction, and one morning he just woke up just completely hungover, sweat through all of his clothes, completely ruined a mattress from like just, he pissed the bed and like it was bad. And he woke up that morning and he was like, yeah, it's enough of this shit. He was just like, I'm fucking, I'm X years old. I'm not gonna fucking do this anymore. So he went and got, the help. Like that was the thing that happened to make him be willing to be like, all right, I need to change this. And that's kind of what I was like saying about therapy too, is you have to, like you said, the needle has to move from unwilling to willing in order for the therapy to do what it does. And like therapy is an interesting thing because therapy is fucking painful. Like you don't walk into therapy and like, walk out all smiles and kittens. Like that's not what that is. Like you're peeling back layers of shit that you've been drowning or, like whatever for so many years. Like you're pulling that shit out and you're dealing with it like right in front of your face. And when you get a therapist that works for you, like that, clicks, there's no better feeling. Like when you can actually let that shit out and like really actually work on the problems that you're having. Like, even though it's not sunshine and kittens, it feels good. Even if it's painful, it's like that weird good pain where you walk out of it where it's like, like I'm sore, but this feels good, at the same time.
Dude, the best tweet that I read last year was somebody wrote, "I hope my therapist has a good Thanksgiving." It's the fucking saddest, funniest thing I've ever read. That's the thing about therapy is that it's one of those things where it's both too expensive and also we can't pay those people enough, man.
Oh, fully agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah,
it's when I went to therapy, I actually had my therapist, my original therapist that I had when I went. This was kind of funny because I went there and like we got into the like stuff pretty quick, and they were like, "What is it that you want to work on?" And I was like, "I want to work on past trauma from the way I was raised and like stuff that happened in my childhood that's starting to come back like as I've been more sober and stuff." My brain was like, "Hey, remember all that shit that you've been drowning for so many years? Like, hey, here's a reminder." So I had to deal with that. And the therapist asked me for one event that stuck in my brain. And I was like, "Oh, that my biological father left me as collateral for a brick of heroin." And the therapist was like, "You know what? We're probably going to need to get you a different one." Like they didn't even fucking try. They were just like, "This is out of my pay range. We're going to go ahead and upgrade you to the supervisor and we're going to have them deal with this."
Jonas, that's actually incredibly sweet. Do you know how much a brick of heroin goes for?
Dude, that's the thing. Right. And that's like, it's so funny because as I've gone through therapy and I found this was like this whole situation with my biological father, like he died when I was 13. Like, so, he's been gone for a long time, but it was kind of like the thing that I had been reaching for in comedy, where I was like, I want to make that situation funny somehow because it's been haunting me for fucking years. Like for 25 years, I had this thing in the back of my head where I fucking hated my father because I thought that he didn't give a fuck about me when I was a kid. And like, fast forward through all the therapy shit that I've gone through with it. And what I ended up landing on is that like, he was a shitty father, but he was a fucking great negotiator. Like what a businessman that guy was. Like, do you understand like how good he had Trump. To be?
That is the art of the deal right there.
Exactly. It's like, sure, I hated him as a dad, but fuck, did I respect him as a businessman? Like it was insane. My friends are just straight up was just like, "I can't deal with this one. This is too deep for me. So we're going to put you to somebody else."
Well, I mean, good on that therapist for just being like, "Nope, I tap." Like
quick. They recognized it quick. They're just not my jam. This is not something I can do.
Yeah. And just being like, I can't help you with this. I fucking worry about my therapist where I'm like, man, now she walks around with all this shit in her head. How does she deal with the stuff that but I mean, obviously the stuff that I tell her about my life or whatever, it doesn't trouble her the way that it troubles me. But
right. Does she have a therapist? Who does she go see?
I know. The therapist of my therapist is my enemy. No, wait, how does that go? The therapist of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So one thing with you, with how you dealt with, this is something it'll bring back to your, your works. So one of the things that you did, after you got clean is you got addicted to something else. You got addicted to running.
Jonas, we're gonna have to fucking fight on this one too, man. Oh my god.
Cool. Let's fight it out. Seriously though, how did this is an honest question though. How did your life transition from what you were doing before to being the person you are today? And like the running thing specifically, the reason I bring it up is because now I've seen this happen with at least 3 other people in the comedy community specifically who had something change in their life, whether it was like full sobriety or like partial sobriety or whatever the case may be. And then they started fucking running, and they've been doing it now for, a year or whatever. And like their entire life turned around. It was wild.
So one of the reasons I always get my feathers ruffled about you became addicted to running thing is because that
was very tongue-in-cheek of me to say, by the way, just so we're clear.
I'm still gonna leap through this Zoom connection and throttle you.
You absolutely shit all over it.
I never had to goad myself into fucking taking a drink or doing a line or eating pills or whatever. And every morning I wake up and I'm like, you fat old piece of shit, you fucking weakling, you coward, put your running shoes on. Do it. I still have to force myself to do it. I don't want to run I didn't want to run this morning, and I was like, I'll just take the dog to the dog park. And I was like, no, you fuck. All you either do this one little circuit with her, or you go to the dog park. Like, it's Monday. There's not going to be anybody out. Go for a fucking hike. Just drive down and like hike. And then I went, took her down there, and we were hiking. And then I was like, I can run this, and I started running. But for me, running was making it. Becoming determined to take on the challenge of doing that grim fucking work of like sweating in public and the getting better, the self-improvement, I just came to a moment in my life where I was like, I'm unhappy with every single part of my life. I can't force people to forgive me for what I've done. I can't force my own forgiveness. Like, what do I have control of? And one of the things that I did have control of was my body, the extra 8 hours that I had each day now that I wasn't drinking or hungover. And so I was just determined that, like, I couldn't afford a fucking gym membership, and I couldn't, the running is free. And I was like, I'm just going to do this thing, I didn't know that I would need to do it as much as I did. I still, I still need running so much in my life. But it's the opposite of an addiction for me. It's a powerful anti-addiction medication. When I'm not running, I'm not myself. I'm not a good guy.
Okay. I love that. That's great.
But it is, I think too, we're talking about the sort of that like crystalline moment of transformation where like a tiny little gap yawns open and like the impossible suddenly becomes possible. Like maybe I can quit Coke, maybe I can quit drinking, maybe I can quit Coke and drinking, or I can quit prostitutes or whatever
whatever it is your vice happens to be,
workers or the pornography or whatever, because addiction is addiction at its core. I think to do there's another thing, people talk about, runner's high, which it's if you do a lot of an unpleasant thing, then you feel better when you stop.
Right. Yeah.
But I think there's something more
rush
to it. Yeah. Which is finding something you're resistant to and overcoming your own resistance and doing it. Because when I don't want to clean the cat litter and I'm like, fucking clean the cat litter, you have to do it. And I do it. I get a rush from that, of there being something I didn't want to do, me exerting self-mastery and saying, no, you're going to fucking do it, and forcing myself to do it. And then oh shit, it's done. I can cross it off my job list. The runner's high compares nothing to cross it off the job list high, man.
Right.
Completing a task,
It's kind of weird because I understand what you're saying more than I thought I would, because like I'm a fucking fat dude. I do not run. That's not a thing that is in my daily routine in any way, shape, or form. And if I am running, there's something dangerous behind me. But I do go to the gym. Like I go to the gym and I do kickboxing. And
kickboxing rules.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking great. Like it's one of those things. Like I've watched UFC for years, and I used to actually like legitimately know how to fight, but I'd never done it in a way where I would go to the gym and I would like hit a heavy bag and I would go through all that stuff. That's not at all what it was. But then when I started going to the gym and I started doing specifically Muay Thai kickboxing, so you're talking knees, elbows, punches, kicks, like the whole nine. You're working your whole body. And it always freaks people out of the gym because I have good form and I know what I'm doing, but I'm also 300 pounds. So they're like, how the fuck is this guy doing that? Like he just, he did a head kick and his thighs are the size of my entire torso. So it freaks people out, but I love doing it. And then at the end of that, like I'm exhausted, but that feeling like the quote unquote runner's high, it's the same thing. I've worked my body out so much and I've crossed that off the list, and just like that feeling that you get in your body, it's an incredible feeling. Like it really is. And it's hard to explain it because it is an endorphin rush for sure. That's exactly what it is. But to actually explain what that feeling is to somebody that hasn't done it, it's very, very tough to actually break it down.
Yeah. I mean, the runner's high or sort of exercising high, it is real. It is an actual like physiological phenomenon. But I think part of it too is that if you every day you forced yourself to like go and volunteer at a homeless shelter or something like that, and it was something that you didn't enjoy doing, but that you forced yourself to do it because you told yourself this is going to make me a better person. Yeah. I think that you would still get some kind of high from that, just from you're exerting care. It's a manifestation of self-care, that I'm eating my vegetables. I know that I don't enjoy this. I know that it's good for me. So I'm doing it. It's an investment. But listen, you and I, in our own ways, became, as every addict does, we became the master of the short-term solution, right?
Sure.
Of I'm going to do a line and a shot and I'm going to disappear. And to force yourself to go to kickboxing, to force yourself to run, to force yourself to change your diet or meditate or do any of those things, what you're doing is you're investing in a long-term solution, saying that this will make me feel worse now, but it's going to make me feel better tomorrow and the day after.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. And here's a question for you. Are you one of the people that eventually has that time where you're like, I can't fucking wait to go running? Or is it like me, where every time it's just like, fuck, I should just go do the kickboxing. I should just go get it done. Can't think of any time, like as I'm racking my brain right now, I cannot think of any time where I'm just like, I can't fucking wait to go do this. Like,
oh yeah, no, I'm definitely I'm right there with you, brother. I always have people who come up to me at the like merch table or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not some crazy runner like you who just lives to run." And I'm like, "Go fuck yourself. Do not say that to me or about me or to anybody." It's like some people love the shit they do. Whenever I talk to somebody, they're like, "Oh, I love writing." I'm like, "You must be a terrible writer. You must not be good at it."
That's really funny.
I know it's a poor.
It's accurate about comedians too. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. But I do think there are some people who love running and who love to run. But I am not one of them. And just because I do it a lot, that don't make the mistake of thinking that I like love running. I love not dying. I love feeling like I'm not dying. or I love not feeling like I'm dying. All
For
of
sure.
those things, I love not having to apologize to everybody in my phone book the next day. Love not shitting my pants,
I remember saying one time, I was like, one of the things that told me I needed to stop drinking was I shit my pants on a Wednesday, and I'm an adult. Like, I should never have that happen. That should not be a thing that ever happens in my life, but it did.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to wrap that up too, because like you like the feeling of not dying. Like, and I think that is one of the best ways to put that, is because when you stop doing things that are actively killing you, that really is what the feeling is when you boil it down to its most basic thing is, yeah, I like the feeling of no longer slowly killing myself.
Yeah, it feels like somebody takes their fucking boot off your neck. You're like, oh my God, I can breathe again. This rules.
Yeah. And it's, and it's weird too, because I think, with the nature of this, this show and everything, it's like addiction comes up a lot. Like, that's just going to be a thing that comes up a lot because there's so many people in the world that are, suffering from it, going through it, et cetera, et cetera. But that is the best way to put it, is it does legitimately feel like a weight has been taken off of you. And it's like, oh, I can actually be alive again and enjoy the feeling of being alive, And sure, it's not all fun and games, like you're saying with the running, and also with me with kickboxing and stuff. It's like, sure, the payoff is great, but the initial start of it, every time, it's just like, fuck, all right, let's just go do this,
I have to tell you too, man, the people think that, athletes in the Olympics are inspirational. And whenever I see like, some fucking 22-year-old who weighs $120, sprinting, I'm like, yeah, of course you're fucking sprinting. When I was in Central Park and I would see somebody who is 300 down from 360,
yeah,
like jogging, like barely above a walk.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's fucking inspiration right there. Like that person, those are the people who keep me going, for people to overcome their discomfort with their own bodies or their own inertia or whatever, and be like, no, fuck it. I'm going to the gym. I'm just going to do it. I don't know. That always gets ultimate respect from me.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. And that's something like the person that I think comes to mind for me a lot, is Dan Lamort.
I was just thinking about him.
Yeah, because I love Dan. Like, I fucking love Dan. The first time I met Dan, he was fat as fuck. Like, he was huge, and me and him.
Does it feel like a fucking betrayal? Like he went over to the other team now?
Yeah, it kind of does. When I see him, I'm like, you skinny motherfucker. Like, you thin fuck. Like, but at the same time,
push him. Just bully him.
All I have to do is like blow a strong wind at him and he'll fucking fly away. But like, give
him a good shove.
Yeah, he was an inspiration to me because it's like, I saw what he did, he stopped with most of his bullshit and now he smokes weed, he runs a lot, he eats better. Like, but that's an inspiration because, like you were saying, the way that he started that was like one block.
Yep.
It was literally, I'm going to walk this block today and then I'm going to jog this block tomorrow. And then by the end of the week, hopefully I can run a block or two, and then the next week it was add a little bit more, add a little bit more, add a little bit more. And it just kind of like, it was that thing. And then you could also see like when it was like the transition that was happening, the transformation, not just in the body, but you could tell that he was a happier person, Yeah. And he was always pretty jovial and he was always pretty happy, but like he legitimately, you could tell like that inspired me to see somebody that was as big as he was. Cause I'm close to what he was, I'm a little bit lower, but I'm close to what he was. And to see that is just like, it can totally fucking be done. Like you have to want to do it and you have to be able to deal with the shitty part in the beginning, but it absolutely can be done. And I think this is actually a good place to stop the conversation for the most part, just because the reason I wanted to say that is because what you've got going on, you're your book, your collection of all of your stuff is out now. And I know you've been talking about that a lot online and stuff too.
Yeah.
Where can people go for it?
I will plug the shit out of it.
Plug it a lot.
If you hear noise, my fucking dog just woke up and now she's trying to climb into my lap. I'm almost done. Okay, almost.
Don't worry. Listen, New York was singing at us during this thing. My cat took 2 shits. I'm sure. Like it's fine.
I'm at Mishka Shabali on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm the only Mishka Shabali out there. I'm selling signed copies through my website, mishkashabali.com, or you can just message me through any social media platform. And then the new book is also available for sale through Amazon. So you can either buy it from an independent businessman or a huge evil corporation. So up to you.
Listen, make your choice, guys. You make your choice.
Yep.
They should definitely buy it directly from you, though. But also, listen, I will say this about Amazon, though. Your books started as Kindle stories.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Jeff Bezos wrote the foreword for the new book, so it's tongue in cheek when I shit on Amazon.
Of course,
I would not be where I am without them.
Yeah, but that's kind of an interesting story too. I mean, obviously, we could do an entire episode about that stuff, but that is an interesting story. The fact that you went from some Kindle stories to how many books do you have now?
I just have my memoir, I Swear I'll Make It Up to You, and then the collection. Those are the only 2 physical books, but I've written 7 or 8 sort of like little mini memoirs that are published digitally.
Sure. And then the new collection, the new collection in in physical form, did that just come out?
Yeah, it really just came out. I think, what month is this? April. It came out last month.
Okay, I was correct then, because I saw you posting it online and stuff, and I was like, oh shit, that just came out. Like I personally didn't know that had just came out right then, but I saw that you were posting it, so I was like, I feel like that just has to be a new release or something.
This is where I am as a human being, is that everybody knows that I went crazy last summer, but nobody knows that I have a new book out, because I'm far more comfortable being like, my head is imploding, than I am being like, buy this thing that I made.
For sure. That very much is an artist brain too, just because like, oh man, like I'm going to tell you all about my things, but also I have this thing that you should buy because I do need money. Like,
yep.
It's funny. This is one of the other things that kind of links back to everything that we've talked about here. Your book, your first one, I actually had sent that to a friend of mine that was going through some early recovery, and just, friend to friend, person to person, it helped her a lot. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a very cool thing for her to be able to read and see a different story, a different side of it, a different experience that she actually related to quite a bit, and that's actually one I remember you had written like a little personal message and a signature and stuff like that too. So that was a really cool thing. And so I've seen it in real world, real time actually help somebody. So that's very, very cool.
Awesome.
This has been a great episode, man. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for talking about everything and bearing your soul with us, and not holding back at all, which is kind of what I expected from you.
Absolutely.
Never would have expected you to hold back.
Good to catch up with you, brother.
Absolutely. So everybody, just again, this is the Traumedy Hour. So again, if you're going through anything, hopefully what we talked about today, at least helped you a little bit. In any way. I think that one of the biggest problems with mental health or addiction or trauma or grief or any of those things is that sometimes you feel like you're alone in your experience. And I really hope that anybody that listens to the show, I hope that it helps you feel like you're less alone, and I know everybody's experience is not going to be the same, but I feel like experiences, a lot of them are similar. And that's something that I struggled with a lot when I was dealing with things, especially early on. And I think also with the pandemic too, isolation was such a big thing that I think it kind of, I think it really did a lot to a lot of people, yourself included, me and you both.
Yep.
I think it really made those things even worse. So hopefully with this, with us talking today, I really do hope that it shines a little bit of a light on at least somebody's life to help them understand that maybe they're not as alone as they thought, And obviously, everybody, buy the books, buy them directly. I mean, if you have to go to Amazon, I get it. I understand. Listen, I got an Amazon delivery today. All right, it's all right. I'm not gonna whip your ass over that. But if you can buy it directly from the artist. I know that helps. And again, if you have any questions, if you ever want to reach out, my DMs are always open. If you just feel like you need to talk to somebody and you just want to bullshit, I'm always about that. I don't have to know who you are. I don't have to be, close friends with you or anything like that. If you need somebody to talk to and I'm available to talk, I am happy to do that. So anybody that needs that, please go ahead and take advantage of it. You can find me on Facebook. I almost always have a Facebook profile picture that's like a fucked up mashup. Right now, it's Willem Dafoe and Guy Fieri, and I think I'm going to keep that one for a while. So that's the one you can always find me on. Twitter at Jonas Barnes, Instagram at Jonas Barnes Comedy. Message me anytime if you have any questions, anytime if you just want to talk. Thank you guys so much for listening tonight. Mishka, thank you so much for, again, being on the show and telling everybody about your experiences as well. And that has been the Traumedy Hour. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. And we'll be on here next week as well. Thank you.